Now today we're still looking at poor old Daniel. We started off, didn't we, a few weeks ago, and he was only 15 then, but today he's 85, so we've sat with him for the last 70 years. And we're looking at a king whose actions were scrutinised by God and he failed. Did you hear what Daniel said to, not Gordon read? That was what Daniel said to the king Belshazzar. And you know what? How the world is today, there are many rulers, kings, dictators, prime ministers, leaders who God is watching. And each one will be required to answer to God, just like Belshazzar. Sooner or later, they are going to face God. And all these leaders, movie stars, influencers on social network, they think they're powerful and they think they have their own destinies in their hands and they're doing what they like. But just like Belshazzar, they are only in those positions of power because God allows it. We find in this story today, poor old Daniel, who's now 85 years old, he's faded into the background during the past 70 years, but he's been busy. He's been mentoring other wise men in Babylon, having been instructed to set up a school for those people. Now in the Bible they're called enchanters and fortune tellers and people like that, but it was the Magi. And the wise men of the East, who we'll be thinking about very soon, were the ones who followed the star to Bethlehem. They are graduates of this school that Daniel has been setting up for the last 70 years. Isn't it amazing, the correlation? So poor old Daniel, he's summoned by a hysterical Belshazzar, who is trembling and pale and unable to even stand up. He's so frightened because he was confronted by this supernatural event in the middle of his huge feast. He set up a huge feast of 1,000 nobles came together to drink, to get drunk, to carouse, whatever, and this incident happened. Now, who is Belshazzar? When this incident happened, he was about 41 years old, so he wasn't very old, was he? Especially, we can all look and go, 41, he's only a chicken, isn't he? He was either, and we're not sure, he was either the grandson or the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Some people, like you look in the books and they go, oh no, it was his grandson or somebody, but the Bible calls him his son, so we'll stick with that because the Bible to us is the ultimate authority. And he was the son of Nebuchadnezzar, the king that we've been hearing about, who made the big statue and who had established Babylon. And we heard how Daniel said Nebuchadnezzar had this fantastic reputation. Well, I don't know about fantastic, but he had this reputation. He killed whoever he wanted to kill. He did whatever he wanted to do. And Belshazzar, his son, was basking in this glory that Nebuchadnezzar had established. Belshazzar was an arrogant man who thought that the great Babylon city was too strong to ever be defeated. But we find out, because they had double walls around it, they had the river Euphrates running and bringing water, and they had food enough that if there was a siege, they would be happy to live there as long and no one could get them. That's what he thought. However, he was to find out that his successor was more clever than him. His successor dammed the Euphrates River and stopped the water from going into the city. So it doesn't matter how many walls they had around them, it didn't protect them. And the king who followed, the king of the Medes, was able to just walk in and take it without even, killing anybody. So Belshazzar didn't have a hope, but he was so sure of himself, he was having this big feast for about 1,000 people. While he had the feast, they were all getting drunk and everything like that, he called for the golden chalices, cups and things that his father had stolen from Jerusalem when they sacked Jerusalem and took Daniel and the other people away. He had also destroyed the temple and taken the implements that were in the temple that were sacred to God. They had been made and they were used in worship to God. And he stole them and he had them stashed away. Belshazzar thought arrogantly, I'll take them out and we'll drink out of them and we'll praise our gods of stone and gold and bronze, and we'll worship our own gods. And then at that minute, when they were doing that, that's when the finger appears and writes the 3 words on the wall. That's why Belshazzar was nearly weeing himself. He was so frightened, because how would you be? Here he is thinking, oh yeah. And the Bible says that he went white as a ghost. He was scared out of his wits. His legs went limp and his knees knocked. Can you imagine this great king who thought that he was greater than God feeling like that? And he yells out, help, help, somebody come and tell me what these words mean. He knew that they meant something pretty drastic. Anyone who can read these words, I'll make him third in my kingdom. I'll give him a gold chain and I'll make him really important. They all tried, of course. They haven't learnt their lesson yet, have they? No. But the queen mother, heard the hysterics and came in and said, don't you know there is someone who can read those words? Don't worry about all these other people. Don't be upset. Don't sit around looking like ghosts. There's a man in your kingdom. And she said, he's full of the divine Holy Spirit. So they knew, didn't they? He knew. And she said, during your father's time, he was well known for his intellectual brilliance and spiritual wisdom. He was so good that your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, made him the head of all the magicians, all the enchanters, all the fortune tellers and diviners. And there was no one quite like him. He could do anything, interpret dreams, solve mysteries, explain puzzles. His name is Daniel. So isn't that amazing? Even though Daniel's been sitting around for 70 years, his reputation was still powerful. He was still the man who was staying true to God in a strange country. So he's brought forward to Belshazzar, and he doesn't mince words, does he? Gordon read the words. He didn't mince those words, did he? Listen, O king, he says, God gave your father a great kingdom and a glorious reputation. He was made so famous. But he said what happened to him. He got so high and mighty that God ripped him down. And he had the mental illness where he was thinking he was an animal until he turned around and worshipped God. And he says to him, Daniel says to Belshazzar, you're his son, and you have known all this. You're as arrogant as ever he was. Look at you, setting yourself up in competition against the master of heaven. You took these golden chalices that belong to God and you desecrated them. You treat with contempt the living God who holds your entire life from birth to death in his hand. So you can imagine why Belshazzar's knees were knocking together. He was confronted by what he had done. And the words, why they couldn't interpret them, those 3 words, it's like a riddle because the Hebrew people don't put the writing, they don't use vowels, they have consonants, so the words can sometimes be interpreted in different ways. It was like a riddle. I've got a riddle for you now. See if you can guess who this is. I am a voice, not valued. I am a herald, not heard. I am a lamp, but not the light. I come after the one I come before. I am the last and the least. I am the best man and not the bridegroom. I'm in the Bible. Who am I? Who do you think it was? Who? That's it, John the Baptist. Good on you, Dina. It was John the Baptist. So there's riddles that can be interpreted in different ways, and this was a riddle. But it was, as Gordon read, God has numbered the days of your rule, and they don't add up. That was the mene, the first word. The second one, tekel, you have been weighed on the scales, and you don't weigh much. You're not as important as you think you are. And Perez, your kingdom has been divided up and handed over to the Medes and Persians. And exactly as Gordon read, that same night Belshazzar was murdered, and Darius, the Mede king, came in and took over. So Daniel compared Belshazzar to his father Nebuchadnezzar. And it shows that he didn't measure up to the reputation of the father, and he didn't learn the lesson that the father had learned, to not be so arrogant, but to look at God. So he didn't measure up. He failed miserably, and as a result, the words on the wall condemned him, and that evening he died. He was killed. Belshazzar lived as though he was above God. He had no consideration or fear of God. He was arrogant and high and mighty, openly rebelling against God and flaunting himself in the face of God. The use of those sacred vessels, why did he do that? He didn't need to. You think Belshazzar didn't have any gold cups and implements of his own? But no, he wanted to flaunt himself in front of God. So I was thinking about, often we compare, like he was compared to his father and he was found wanting. And in our society today, competition or comparing ourselves to people is rife, isn't it, in our society? It's big on comparisons through social media, TV, magazines, reality shows and the ads on TV. We're always being told, oh, you need this car, or you need this dress, or you need this job. I don't think it's as big a problem for us older people, is it, as for our younger generation, who it's been pushed in their face the whole time. You're not as skinny as you should be. You're not as got a higher powered job as you should. You know, even the ads for Seek, what do you want? Oh, I want a job with more money. We're never happy. We're pushed all the time to be looking to be dissatisfied with ourselves. And our young people are constantly bombarded with the need to measure up to unrealistic and false pictures of what people should be like, what people should have, and how they should act. I say, never keep up with the Joneses. Drag them down to your own level. It's much cheaper. You know, if only people would learn to be comfortable with who they are. You're unique. Enjoy your individuality, your uniqueness, and don't continually be comparing yourself to others. They are themselves and you are you. People are always comparing, and they're left like feeling like these two cows that were reading the sign writing on the side of the milk truck. Pasteurised, homogenised, semi and full skimmed, flavoured milks with added vitamins, and one cow looked at the other and said, it makes you feel rather inadequate, doesn't it? It's a bit like that, isn't it? And you know, we're always feeling dissatisfied. We're always being bombarded and to make us feel like that. Jesus told the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee. You know, the two who came into the church to pray. And one of them, who was a Pharisee, stood up tall. He didn't bend down to pray. He stood up tall and he made sure people could see him. Oh God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, like robbers and crooks, adulterers, or heaven forbid, like this tax collector here, I fast twice a week and I tithe on all my income. Meanwhile, the tax collector, who had a realistic picture of himself, slumped in the shadows, his face in his hands, not daring to look up, said, God, give me mercy, forgive me, I am a sinner. And Jesus commented on these two men. The Pharisee walked out with his head up high, nose in the air, but you know what? He will end up flat on his face because he had an unrealistic expectation of himself. He thought he was really smart and he was righteous, but the poor tax collector who had a realistic expectation, he said, God, forgive me. And Jesus said he was the one who walked out forgiven. He was the one that God was pleased with. Now, how do we fare in these comparison stakes? You know, I think it sneaks up on us that we compare ourselves to other people without even realising. We think we're not as good, we're not as important, we're not as clever. We look at other people and we think, we're not as pretty, I know I'm not, or as skinny, or as healthy, or as rich, or as capable. How come these other people have perfect lives and I struggle? I have debts I can't pay. Why can't I go on that spiffy holiday that someone else has gone on? I can't do the things that they do. I can't speak as well. I can't pray as well as Mark. Ray always says I can't sing, which is true actually, but he says I can't sing. He's always jealous, you know, of Larry, who had this magnificent voice, and Ray would say, oh, I wish I could sing like Larry. We're always comparing ourselves to other people, aren't we? I'm no good. I feel inadequate. We all do that, don't we? And I was thinking about it. Well, I don't think we mean to, but it's something in our DNA, isn't it? That we somehow compare ourselves to other people and we think we're too small to be effective. I can't do the things that other people do. But you're never too small to be effective. Have you ever been in bed with a mosquito? They're pretty small, but they're pretty effective. But the more we compare ourselves to others, the worse we feel, don't we, about ourselves. And it's a dangerous trap that we all fall into. The Lord promised us, listen to Isaiah, I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. Imagine that. By name. You are mine, he says. We don't belong to other people who either like us or don't like us. You belong to a God who loves you. So Belshazzar was measured against Nebuchadnezzar and was found wanting. And I thought, well, who should we compare ourselves to in this modern world? I want to tell you, whoever you do compare yourself to, it will never work. I found an illustration that it really proves this. Charlie Chaplin entered a look-alike contest. Now, we all know what Charlie Chaplin looks like, don't we? In 1975, a few years before he died, Chaplin entered a look-alike contest of himself in France. And he thought, oh, beauty, I'm going to win this hands down. And everyone will have a good laugh. Guess what? He came third. He came third. So no matter who, you can't even compare yourself to yourself and you won't come on top. Who are our heroes and people worth modelling our lives on? Are they politicians? Think of some movie stars, kings, queens, people with vast amounts of wealth. Surely they must be doing something right that we can model our lives on. Bill Gates, this huge millionaire, should we try and be like him? What about leaders like Albanese, Donald Trump, King Charles, or even the late Queen? Surely they're worth comparing ourselves to and striving to emulate. Even people like, think of really good people like Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Mandela, Billy Graham. They all led lives that challenge us. However, I'm sure, like Nebuchadnezzar's statue, remember, gold, silver, bronze, feet of clay. We've all got feet of clay. We all make mistakes. Even those people would have made mistakes in their lives. I reckon the only person who is worthy to compare yourself to and strive to emulate with all your might is Jesus. He showed us God. He showed us how to truly live a life that is worthwhile. He was perfect. We should only look to him, as all others are failed humans like ourselves. When people condemn the church and say, oh, it's only full of hypocrites, it's because they're looking at the people who are there. And we are all imperfect and we all need Jesus, and that's why we're here. That's why we're in church, not because we're perfect. If they focused on Jesus and on him alone instead of the people, they would get it right. Don't look at the people around us today. Have a look. I'm not saying don't look, but if you do look at the people around us today, none of us are perfect, are we? We're not even close to it. We all do things that get up each other's noses, yeah? Agreed? And we all let each other down. We don't mean to, but we're only human. We can only look at Jesus, who will never fail us and never let us down, who loves us unconditionally in spite of our failures. In a moment, we're going to listen to a song called Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. And while we sit in our seats, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to truly look at Jesus. And I want you to pick one area in your life that you would like Jesus to have more control over. One attribute of Jesus that you would like to embrace in your life. Is there something about Jesus that you would like to be more like him? While we hear this song, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, I want you to like a prayer, close your eyes, look at Jesus and think of that one thing and ask him to help you.